Good news. Trump makes trade deal with China. Guys, let's jump into this immediately, see where this takes us. We'll comment throughout. This is a suggestion via a channel member.
Hello, everyone. I am Tom Schlup, along with Molly Line, Lydia Hu, and David Webb. And welcome to a special edition of the Big Weekend Show.
No, let's go, guys.
Story. It's all about the art of the deal. The Trump administration has announced a trade deal has been reached with China.
Okay.
This comes after the president hailed the great progress made during yesterday and today's meetings in Switzerland. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trade Representative Jamieson Greer detailed the negotiations earlier today.
All right, let's hear it, guys.
We made substantial progress between the United States and China in these very important trade talks. We will be giving details tomorrow. But I can tell you that the talks were productive.
The president declared a national emergency and imposed tariffs, and we're confident that the deal we struck with our Chinese partners will help us to work toward resolving that national emergency.
This all comes as President Trump is set to...
Okay, so progress was made, not specifically the trade deal has been approved. We definitely need to kind of expedite this process here.
Work toward resolving that national emergency.
So we don't run into any shortages
this all comes
this
as
summer.
President Trump is set to take his first trip to the Middle East during his second term. The president is set to visit with leaders from Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and the United Arab Emirates starting Tuesday, as the U.S. held another round of nuclear negotiations today with Iran. Lucas Tomlinson is live in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, with all the latest. Hi, Lucas.
Well, good evening, Tom. When President Trump first returned to the White House, his first call with a foreign leader was here to Saudi's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. And like his first term, President Trump is taking his first official overseas trip here to Saudi Arabia. As you mentioned, he's also going to continue on to Qatar and the United Arab Emirates as well. You mentioned the negotiations going on overseas, not just in Oman, the talks with the Iranians, but in Geneva, where Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Trump's top trade representative Jamieson Greer spoke to their Chinese counterparts. Earlier, North Dakota Senator John Hoeven said this is an important first step.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
This is very encouraging. Obviously, they're not going to have a deal fully done. You've got Jamieson Greer over there, the U.S. Trade Representative, and Secretary Bessent. That's the first string, no doubt about it. But they're still going to come back and talk with President Trump and all those kind of things. But the important point is they made real progress and have a framework to get to a deal.
Okay. But to be honest, I mean, that's probably the most important thing right now, but I definitely do hope that, we kind of get this pretty much resolved within the next couple of weeks here. Again, we cannot risk, let's say, June, July, August, hitting the United States of America, specifically the product that has already been made and manufactured and exported and imported into the United States of America. We have stockpiles of things from China, guys. We definitely do. And when those start to kind of wear down is when you're going to start seeing price hikes on a lot of things, because again, scarcity, guys, right? Supply, demand. And I'm not sure that the American population is absolutely completely ready to kind of withstand that gigantic bump, specifically as we're living within a like an inflationary event here.
Bessent said in Geneva, details of what the White House called a deal will be released tomorrow. Officials said it's likely to follow the model of the U.S.-UK trade agreement, which reduced tariffs on aluminum, steel, and cars. As I mentioned, there's some other negotiations going on today. Trump's special envoy, Steve Witkoff, is in neighboring Oman, meeting with Iranian officials over its nuclear program. Both sides touted progress and said they will meet again. They've already met 4 times. Now, some good news, Tom. Hamas said late today would release the last living American hostage held in Gaza, 21-year-old Edan Alexander from New Jersey, who served in the Israeli military. Israel says there will be no ceasefire during the exchange, and Hamas said that release is scheduled for Tuesday. And, of course, that's the same day President Trump arrives here in Saudi Arabia. So some good news here from the region, Tom.
Very good news.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lucas. Okay, let's do some analysis. But, Molly, maybe get your take on that news. The last living hostage is being released.
That would be remarkable, and I really, truly, deeply hope that that is true. Witkoff is expected to go to Israel. We hope that Edan Alexander, he's now 21. He was 19 when he was taken hostage, the last living American hostage in Hamas captivity, and hopefully that does come to pass. Ultimately, big things. Lucas.
Definitely also hopefully that he makes it, guys. Because we've seen a couple of these prisoner exchanges where they're saying, "Hey, listen, we're going to go ahead and release the last living individual, for example," and then come to find out that the reason why they're releasing him is because he's going to expire kind of any moment now. I think we recall the incident in North Korea, guys, right? Many years ago.
Hamas captivity, and hopefully that does come to pass. Ultimately, big things. Lucas Tomlinson there at the end of his report said some good news, and I think that is the case. For the last couple days of the Trump administration, on war and peace, on diplomacy, on the economy, teasing ahead to potentially some big headlines to come on trade on Monday. Fascinating, but we definitely hope that Alexander comes home.
Yeah, let's get your take on some of this. We got some video here. Let's do the clip of Howard Lutnick on the China negotiations.
This is just a China problem right now, right? We have 145% tariff. They have 125% tariff. Those tariffs are too high to do business. But that's why they're talking right now. The rest of the world is 10%. He's there to see if we can reset the conversation, and he's at it right now. But that's the objective, to de-escalate.
Okay, Lydia, let's get your take on this. What are they going to be talking about on Fox Business about these negotiations? They're giving the good news. They're saying it's the beginning of a deal, but how much of the deal is it?
Yeah, that's what we're all waiting to see. I mean, I think you might hear some surprise, you know, if we really have the framework of a deal and a deal actually penned, penciled, signed on the dotted line by tomorrow. That's very fast. I think faster than what a lot of people were expecting. I'm not sure that anyone really expected that China would be among the first. You know, we had the deal with the UK just last week. Now,
I mean, the guys absolutely expected China to be among the first here, guys, right? I mean, all the other ones are basically at, what, 10% or a little bit slightly above that, guys. Understand that. The one that is all over the news right now is, in fact, China. Now, did I personally expect for this deal to be completely, you know, solidified right now? Yes, actually, because if you actually paid attention to how Trump was actually responding to a good amount of the questions kind of regarding China, he would also always say, at least lately, we're not going to basically talk about this. Let's go ahead and change the subject. That was basically his mannerism and his overall attitude kind of towards the topic. So everything in me says that there was something going on the entirety of the time behind the scenes, but it does seem like that was true, but yet they have not actually come up to a full-blown deal yet.
Having China with just a second, I think you can probably expect there to be a reduction in tariffs. You know, the President Trump alluded to that. The other questions remain, though, what are we going to see in terms of the non-tariff barriers? You know, we import 3 times as much from China than what they import from us. We want more access to their market just as much as they want access to ours. And there are things that China has done that has made them not such great and fair players with this. You know, currency manipulation, their use of labor to make their products so much cheaper. I think there are a lot of questions about whether or not that they're going to respect intellectual property moving forward with American firms that are doing business over there.
The answer to that question is no. They have no respect at all for the concept of intellectual property. Basically, if you give them your plans from your patented U.S. Company, they're going to build your product for much cheaper than can actually be manufactured in the United States of America, while then in a factory basically down the street that they'll build, right, they'll start manufacturing your product and then putting other names onto it. That's what's going to happen. That's basically what always happens here. Then, while being completely shielded by their federal government and their judges, guys, because again, you can't. It's not like you can sue them in China. You can't. They can sue you here, though. But so we need to work on a couple of things here.
So there are a lot of details to be ironed out. I thought it was very interesting that our Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, who is very smart in the negotiation, kind of said, you know, we've made great progress. He did not say that there's a deal. You know, other people are talking
why
about
did you title this video like
across
this?
the finish line. So we'll see exactly how this develops.
He's
tomorrow.
kind of trying to. This is what they do. Trump kind of comes out with the good news, and then Bessent backs off it a little bit. That's kind of the pattern, isn't it?
I think our Treasury Secretary is very smart and respectful of the president and knows that there's not really a deal until the president says there's a deal. So we'll wait and see what happens.
David wants to get in on China, but I'm going to throw something into the mix here, David.
Throw it all together.
The Iran news. Let's get Representative Jared Moskowitz on the Iran nuclear talks.
President Trump has the capability, we've seen it many times before, right now to put maximum pressure on Iran, use that tough language, and see if we can get the dismantling of those nuclear facilities. If not, I'd like to see President Trump say that he will dismantle it one way or another. Let the Iranians know, again, all options are on the table.
I get it, but they're not going to.
Okay, Dave.
And I mean, we have like a historical precedent to kind of acknowledge that aspect of things. They're not going to.
David, let's get in on the
We
Iran
can talk
talks.
about it.
They're actually all tied together. And if you think about even the time difference, right now it's nighttime where Scott and the trade rep are. So whatever's been done has been done already, unless they're working up past midnight. Iran, China, the deal with us. China's the big player in the Middle East. They buy their oil from Iran. They have a lot of power in the Middle East. If you think about it, their military equipment was even used in the Pakistani attack in India.
Right.
At the center of a lot of this is Chinese goods, Chinese cheap goods, and this deficit has to be dealt with because China gets the benefit and the world gets the deficit, frankly, to put it in those terms.
Well, that's fair.
We have got to get China back on track as best we can. And Trump uses one thing which we haven't seen played yet, to the point of whether Bessent is correcting or cleaning up. He's really not. It's Trump's way of operating because Trump has told him before, and we've seen this, I'll go back to the table. And in the case of UK, he got another $1 billion on the table. In the end, he is the president. He will make the decision. So they're working as a 1-2 punch. And with China at the middle of this, and think about the Swiss, they have an embassy with Iran. They're a linchpin to that. China. There's a reason we're there. It's not just because that's the place to do the deal. It's where there are multiple people that can be involved and a lot of signals to be sent.
Yeah.
Well, absolutely. I would also agree with. How about this? No, I completely agree with everything he just said here. Completely. But the problem is that the Swiss generally have no, let's say, they're not going to get involved with nothing, bro. Okay, not them.
Molly, what do you think is going to be? There's so much news today,
I know,
right?
I know.
What do you think is going to be Monday's #1 thing that the White House is pushing?
I think they're pushing whatever it is that they've got on the table for China. They're kind of teasing that ahead and saying we're going to have the big news tomorrow. And what it is, hopefully we'll find out then. And as you mentioned, the best at forward and backward, and maybe the president has some big news. So I think that's the big one ahead. But there's another headline here. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he's ready to meet personally with Vladimir Putin. And that's a whole other part of this. And this might be the most challenging part of the diplomacy that's going on right now, where we're seeing some successes potentially in Israel with the potential release of this final American that they're still holding. And in China, we're seeing the economic success. But the Ukraine and Russia challenge seems to still be one of the toughest ones.
Maybe this is where Molly is. She's forcing me to change the subject to that very thing. China isn't the only adversary making news today. Russian President Vladimir Putin is proposing direct peace talks with Ukraine this week in Turkey to try to end the 3+ years of fighting.
Okay.
President Trump posted today on Truth Social urging Ukraine to agree to this meeting immediately to end the bloodbath, seemingly backing off his demands for a 30-day ceasefire before talks could start. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky is doubling down on the calls for a ceasefire. He says he will be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday.
Now, he said a lot more than that, guys. Listen, we await a full and lasting ceasefire starting from tomorrow to provide the necessary basis for diplomacy. The problem with the statement here is that he knows, like everyone else knows, that Putin is not going to actually adhere to any deal that is actually made, guys. Right? It'll be great. I mean, everything that we keep, the world for the most part keeps doing is trying to make Putin specifically be true to his word. But guys, ex-KGB, we get that, right? But he's not very true to his word here.
He says he will be waiting for Putin in Turkey on Thursday. Okay, yeah. David, I bet you have an opinion about this. What is
you safe out there, bro?
Putin is saying maybe no ceasefire. He wants to start talks while the bullets are still flying. Why is that?
With Vladimir Putin, it's beyond chess, and you're not sure. The uncertainty. Russia has a lot of influence in Turkey, right down to the rail lines. The rail widths are Russian widths. Their influence there is important. Also, it's a place for them to hedge against NATO, of which Turkey is a member, by staying in a strong relationship with Erdogan. So from that point, Putin may be willing to go and have a talk, but you can never read ahead in what he's going to do. Zelensky has his own problems internally in the Ukraine. One, he's got no infrastructure of any sort. You've got people who may return from the battlefield. There's not a medical infrastructure. There are a lot of other social services, a government that's fractured. And he's got his hard right flank that he has to figure a way to get out of this, stop the bloodshed if he wants to, and find a way to keep himself out of the sights of his hard right flank in the Ukraine. So going to Turkey, waiting for Putin, puts the onus on Putin, who's coming off his victory day and a good feeling in Russia, and might make it more, I don't know, palpable, maybe more easy to find an off-ramp, which the off-ramp's been off the table for a long time.
Yeah.
Well, Lydia, we're certainly in better shape than we were when Zelensky was, having a tense meeting in the White House not long ago.
That's right. We've got a mineral deal signed. It seems like the relationships are patched up. I was just thinking that,
No, the relationships are in fact not patched up here, guys. We're just dealing with them.
Mineral deal signed. It seems like the relationships are patched up. I was just thinking that, even as it stands right now, I think that the way talks are progressing is evidence that the American First policy and agenda is working. You had European leaders over the weekend gathering with Zelensky to talk about his support of him, and they're phoning it into Trump to say, this is what we propose, this is how we're going to support a ceasefire, this is how we're going to support a peace brokering. That is what President Trump has wanted. He's wanted European nations to step forward
up
and take more responsibility for securing peace in their own region rather than relying on the United States to fight all of their battles. That's been a...
bro, the Ukraine is right there. You know how far we are? Listen, even Zelensky, when he stepped into the Oval Office, being and disrespected the country in the way that he did, he even pointed out, hey, listen, we're over here safe, right? There's not really much of a threat over here. Okay, we're the ones actually in harm's way. Listen, guys, that region, the region you're in, we can go back many thousands of years in history in this context to know that you guys have been warring out there since the beginning of time, recorded history. You guys have been warring. I think it's time for you guys to step up and handle your region, bro. You can't allow us to consistently dump copious amounts of money with nothing in return, not even anything set up for them to pay us back. Guys, all right. Now that mineral deal 100% needed to happen. Zelensky also needs to understand that he is absolutely in an unwinnable situation, and he absolutely needs to, for the most part, capitulate with Russia. I get it. You want to make sure you're maintaining Crimea. I get that, bro. But listen, what are you expecting us to do? Give you more money from the economy that's absolutely failing in the United States of America? It's not a plausible thing, Zelensky. But all right.
Priority. It's something that he's been saying needs to happen. I think we're seeing it happening in real time.
Yeah, Molly, there's almost too many headlines to deal with at this point, right?
There
There's
really
a lot happening in the world.
And
absolutely.
Interestingly enough, Zelensky is calling Putin out directly as well. He says, personally, I hope this time Putin won't be looking for an excuse as to why he can't make it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens.
Zelensky, listen, we're done. Listen, Zelensky, this is from me to you here. All right. Stop poking the bear. Stop poking the bear. And as of right now, Russia is in fact the bear. And no disrespect, but you're a sheep here. Okay. There's not much you can do to stop this overwhelming force, and your countrymen, specifically the ones that are surrounding you, are not actually doing anything meaningful to make an attempt. Because obviously, if they do, what happens? WW3. Okay. So listen, we get it. We see it. Right, we see it, but there's not much more we can do here. We're not going to fight Russia for you. We're not. Sorry. Okay, the mineral deal absolutely makes sense. It allows us to kind of get some money back from the money that we've actually spent in this region specifically. It also allows us to have some type of interest specifically in the Ukraine. So guess who's not going to go against our interest specifically? Right? Russia's not going to just bombard the region knowing that we specifically have the mineral rights to that land. You get what I'm saying here? They're not going to do that, because what are they doing? Right? They're immediately enacting WW3 because we're going to fight for our interests, and obviously that's what that's the move that Trump is trying to do here in its context here. All right, that's how we can forcefully stop it. But the problem is that Putin specifically is not going to do anything to, let's say, curb his appetite for literal destruction in the Ukraine. Right? Putin thinks fully 100% that is his that's his. Okay, that is his. How dare these people on this land say that you're not us, you're us? That's basically the whole, deep-seated mentality here, guys. All right, he fully believes that shouldn't even exist. So that's the dilemma. And he has the force to basically back it up. He ran right into your country, Zelensky. Right. So you basically poking him for the sole purpose of making, I don't know, social media headlines or making yourself feel stronger, I don't know, more bravado, et cetera, et cetera. It's not really beneficial to your plight or your country. Right. So what we really need to do right now, unfortunately, is capitulate to this overwhelming force. And Putin is absolutely not trustworthy. We know that. Okay. so we need to figure out a way, to make sure that you guys make it out of this as safe as humanly possible. But there's nothing that you can do about that land that has already been taken back into Russia, basically. All right. My opinion here, obviously, guys. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. You guys all have an absolutely amazing day. Enjoy your day thoroughly.